what? They called it a draw.
Literally, they got Jones Jr. saying right now he doesn't understand. He doesn't believe in draws. This is crazy.
Even Tyson, before that, you probably dismissed it because you were on here, but they're like, do you think you won? He's like, yeah, but I'm okay with the draw. Like, I entertain people. But yeah, I mean, I think the consensus is obviously that Tyson definitely won that fight.
I just don't get it.
Yeah, no,
How did this happen?
I feel like they probably like did it on purpose. Probably because the way the betting line works, so many people obviously bet on either Tyson or Jones. So few people bet a draw, right? And you have to have a payout if you pick a winner versus if they pick a draw and it went to the judges. I mean, there's already people maybe talking about how the fight before was fixed. They're not saying that it was.
I don't think that was fixed. That was a great fight. I don't know. Those guys look like they're in great shape.
No, absolutely.
Fantastic,
actually. When you like, based on the fact it wasn't real judges, it was just some pro boxers. The commission had so much say in it. They easily could have came over and said, "Hey, just make it a draw." And there's another influence for again a reason to do it because again the casinos are going to end up making so much money off of this now, and then the fact that. Like it creates more entertainment for people are gonna tune in, wonder what happened. Maybe there's a rematch. There's a bunch of things that can happen from a draw. So
yeah, I think that Jones did have a good fight. We all thought that Tyson was gonna win, right? I think we're all in that consensus. It was actually a great fight.
It was.
I think they should have played the full 30-minute rounds.
Absolutely.
As much as they slowed down by the end, that just happens in a heavyweight fight. In any single heavyweight fight, they always slow down by the end. I think they were going at it hard.
Right.
I would not like to take Tyson's shots. Wow.
No, there's even one, I think, in the fourth or fifth, and like the commentators commented that it made Jones wins, but not only did it make him win, I think it lifted him off the ground a bit. It was a nasty body shot. And they both had a couple moments that, like, for people who haven't like, sure, we've all maybe went back and watched their fights or whatever, but it doesn't sit the same. When you see something live and you actually get to see it happen in the moment, it just feels different. And there really was a couple moments in that fight that really made me like, wow, these are actually two guys. Like, at the end of the day, everyone thought a knockout was going to happen or something bad was going to happen. But both these guys are just so good, even at this age, that it couldn't. You can't, like, it would take the best guys in their prime to finish these guys, clearly, because I don't think anyone at their age, it would do it to them, clearly. These are probably, even at their age, the two best guys. If there was some type of Legends division out there, definitely out there.
Yeah, I know, and that you kind of hit it there, and like these guys can go hard. These guys are old timers, but they can take a hit, they can take a beating. I don't think anyone else could have taken a beating like Jones did out there, but Jones still fought back very good. Jones clearly played a more technical game. He's a lot quicker. He avoided. He dodged. His combinations actually came across. Tyson's combinations are more just like 1, 2, just but the really hard punches, which wins people typically. But Jones is really out there showing that he is an all-star. He's a Hall of Famer, one of the best ever boxers.
Yeah.
I think that he did win a few of those rounds. I think that pretty much after every single round, we were thinking it was pretty even when it came to the numbers wise. We were under the impression that Tyson was probably going to win just because of the power that he was putting into those punches.
And he was pulling away towards the end, I feel.
Yeah, and he was really getting at him.
Yeah.
He was putting Jones in the corners.
Yeah.
But Jones was still slipping and getting a couple punches in every round.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the first about, I was about to say 4 minutes because I forgot it's 2-minute rounds. I would say about the first 3 minutes of the fight, Tyson really controlled and it looked like it was going to be one-sided. And then Jones finally got his feet under him. Like, I texted you at first, like, he's moving too much. And it almost reminded me of, like, when Chuck fought Tito the third time, where Chuck just couldn't get his feet under him to save his life. And that's really almost what it looked like at first. Like, Jones just couldn't get his feet under him. And then he finally did at one point where he hit a super slick jab and move where it wasn't even a regular just jab and move. It was like an inside out kind of, it was beautiful. And it really just made me say, okay, this is a fight now. And I think he won the second round, and then it went in tie. I would give Tyson the third. again, the fourth, who knows where it goes. But yeah, I think overall, I would probably say Tyson, probably like a 5-3 kind of thing, ended up winning that. Like you said, very aggressive, controlled a lot of
Right.
the clinching happened because Tyson going forward,
Yeah.
obviously, we're not saying it was a bad move on Jones. It's what he had to do. It's what he said he was going to do. But in terms of scoring, I mean, again, it was at the end of the day Tyson forcing the action, where maybe because MMA is so popular now, we do that in scoring more, where we forget that in boxing, there's guys who all they do is jab and move. They never go for it, and they're champions. I mean, Floyd Mayweather rarely.
That's your typical boxers.
Exactly, and that's
Nowadays.
what Jones was doing. So to say it's a draw, I mean, maybe it's because we just viewed it as kind of the spectacle that it was. We saw Tyson just going forward and hitting those big shots. But like Jones rolled a lot of them too. There wasn't anything too clean that Tyson landed other than to the body. I think maybe there was a right hand at some point, but Jones definitely landed, I would say, more clean shots because there was just a lot of jabs, a lot of those lighter couple combos. But no, they both look super, super good. Especially the first round Tyson. Oh my god! And not just the way his punches were coming look fast, but just his bobbing, his weaving, everything looked so quick at first. You could just tell his the quick twitch fibers, they were just going for him.
He looked better than he did in his last 5 fights.
Yeah,
and that's 15, 18 years ago at this point.
That's what I mean. And even people too saying, like, you could say whatever. And again, he hasn't fought in 15 years. Like, the power might not have been there exactly, but of course, like, he had to gauge the distance. He had to get it. And again, going like, good on Snoop Dogg for having good commentating too, because he even said something along the lines of, he's like, I wish it was 3-minute rounds because I feel like a minute and a half of each round, they're just trying to feel each other out. And then it's only about 30 seconds of them actually understanding what they could do to each other. And I felt like that was really accurate, because they are so good at making adjustments in between fight, thinking different things. Like the first round, again, Tyson was doing his little bob and weave a lot more, versus as the fight went, he was just kind of coming forward and just getting in there. He wasn't even considering really moving as much. But at the same time, in the fifth, he had a beautiful slip that I like, even out loud, I haven't made a sound to a slip many times in my life, but I was like, oh, like it was a beautiful slip he had somewhere in the fifth, I think about in the middle part. Funny, and wants to try to go find it.
True Hall of Famers, those guys, they were really coming at it. The way that he was coming out, I know he was getting a little bit wild by the end of it. But the fact that he's been training for this for probably about 2 months for actual training, didn't have a real camp that's actually just for an exhibition. I know he's been training fairly hard back with this boxing, but if this is how he trained for an exhibition match against a 50-year-old, he could technically come back if he wanted to and fight a top 10 heavyweight and get ranked again.
It's just the way he does things are so intense. Like when I heard how he prepared for the fight, I couldn't help but laugh, because he's like, yeah, I started on the treadmill 15 minutes and then I went to 2 hours. It's like, where the fuck was the in between? That's so Mike Tyson of you. They just immediately have to do 2 hours on a treadmill. We're like 99.9% of people in their life would never do 2 hours on a treadmill at one time. Maybe even not throughout their entire fucking life. Like, it's just crazy how hard he goes. Then he said he'd go for outside runs, and he made that up to 2 hours, doing real workouts for that. And it's just the way he does stuff. It's crazy. And you could really tell that he was enjoying it. We'll probably see him fight again. I actually probably think we will.
And I know that he's probably going to go after another retired fighter to fight against, whether it would be a rematch of Jones, or maybe does get in there with Holyfield. I know he's been talking about coming back as well. Probably what he's going to do, just because the payout's going to be higher. But I would love for him to fight against someone who's actually in their prime, just to see how strong Tyson is right now, if these guys can knock him out.
I mean, everyone would. I mean, I like never would I say like right now Mike Tyson should go fight like Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury.
No, he's not that. He's not there right now.
Of course,
give him number 6, number 7.
Yeah, like if you had a guy like Dylan White or someone who just was in a number 1 contender fight and just got knocked out, you know what? Like, why not? See what he could go do. That would be obviously amazing to see. I mean, even then, like, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we see a rematch, but they give them more standard rules. They make it 3-minute rounds. They might make it 12, because they know the guys can do it. I guess the big reason for the rounds was because it was like Julio Cesar Chavez or Juan Manuel Marquez. There's some Mexican boxer who has recently-ish retired, like hasn't fought in 5 years or so. And he did an exhibition, and I guess towards the end he got super, super tired, and that's what the WBC had based it off of. But again, like they're clearly different animals. They trained for it. They were in shape. They COVID too. They had nothing else to do. All they had
They
to do
look,
was train. So I mean,
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see, like I said, a 12-round rematch, and probably, like I said, the standard boxing rules. That would probably be the most likely move, I would say.
I don't know about a 12-round rematch. I'd say it probably sticks at 8. But with the 3-minute rounds with standard boxing rules, like I said, if this is how they're training for an exhibition that they announced last week that was not supposed to be going for knockouts, Mike Tyson was going for knockouts.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was so funny. Even Ariel Helwani did an interview with him, and he's asking if he knows the rules. He's like, "They'll tell me on the day of." He's like, "Did you know this?" "I know that now." It was so funny because he told him about the rounds. Like he didn't even know about the rounds in that interview. Then he says, "He's like, there's no 2 minutes round." He's like, "I'm finding that out right now." It's funny how honest he is. It's great. But yeah, I mean, well, like I said, I would be surprised to see both of them fight again. I guess they're trying to do this Legends thing. Apparently, Roy Jones' next move is he wants to box Anderson Silva. After seeing that, I'd pick Roy Jones against Anderson Silva versus how they were ended.
Especially in a boxing ring.
Yeah, because even if you look at Anderson Silva's the way he got knocked out in his last fight, it wasn't a hard punch that ended up dropping him. And like Roy, I know he's going to hit him a few times clean. And whether it's 12-ounce gloves or 4, I feel like Silva just doesn't have the legs underneath him anymore. And Jones is a big guy too. Like he's not 205 at the end of the day. That's a big Roy Jones because in his prime he's 160, 170. Now he's just got all this old man weight under him. So I'm sure he hits much harder than he did before, even a bit less speed. And I mean, again, they just look great.
Yeah, no, he looks fantastic. Fantastic. You can tell it. He's only been retired for 2.5 to 3 years.
Yeah.
He was at 48 years old. He actually won another championship match, a title match.
I think
over in Germany
in December last one.
Yeah.
So about 2 years ago. Yeah.
So like, it's not like it was that long ago.
No,
This
definitely.
guy's a professional.
But again, that's more credit to Mike Tyson, where one of them fought 2 years ago. One of them didn't fight in 15 years, and he looked that good. And again,
And he looks like shit in his last match. He gave up.
exactly. And again, that's just going back to Chuck, how bad Chuck looked against Tito and how rough, like, yeah, you could say that a guy like Roy Jones, like you said, very professional. You compare him more like a guy like Randy Couture, who he'd probably step in there with guys his age and still do very, very well, versus a guy like Chuck, more similar to Mike Tyson, where he had a rough life. He went through drugs. He had all this struggles. And clearly Mike Tyson is just another savage to look that good. Where
He's an animal.
couldn't even get his feet under him.
Yeah. He looked like shit in that match.
He looked god awful. And I mean, again, just kudos to both of them. Where again, I think they're both older than Chuck again, and they both look just leaps and bounds beyond he ever could. So I would love to see both of them fight again.
And I think we would pay a lot of money for it again. I think they just made a lot of money. I think just put on this massive event with so many stars in attendance, even though there was no one in attendance. I think that if they put this event on in front of a crowd, maybe in like 6 to 8 months when that vaccine comes out in the States, they make it a requirement, or I don't know. But I think that would just create this to a whole nother animal.
Oh yeah.
And let's just say that they'd get paid again. They just got paid hard. But I can definitely see a rematch at this, and a rematch where someone gets declared a winner.
Yeah, and I think Tyson, like everyone knows, like most of it's going to charity. But again, I'm pretty sure he said most of it's going to charity. Like I'm sure he's still going to take a 500 to mil something cut. Because again, he went through a lot. Like no, not shooting anything against Mike Tyson. If he does take some, he definitely deserves it. But yeah, he is getting rid of most of it, and he'll probably keep doing that because he doesn't need the money.
But the biggest thing he just did is he brought his image back.
Exactly.
He's back in the mainstream. He is Mike Tyson.
Even little things like the hat he wore out in the entrance and stuff. It's like, oh, you are so Mike Tyson. No one else would actually have the balls to wear that hat that did not fit your head at all.
Hey, he's a legend. He can do whatever he wants. I'm so glad to see him fighting again. I've been watching Mike Tyson mysteries for years. Little 10-minute skits. Let's just say it's a funny show. It's amazing to see him back up there. He was an icon for our whole lives, and I'm saying that, and I've only seen him. I may have seen clips of him fighting, or maybe it was the last couple matches which were humiliating. But because in the last 15 years, he hasn't fought. He hasn't been in that scene. He hasn't even been thought of in that way. The fact that he can come back just on what 6 months training, years training max, he's just an animal. He's built for it.
Yeah, and I mean, last thing I'll say before we cut this, but even anyone who hasn't seen his second podcast on Joe Rogan, he's been on the Joe Rogan podcast twice in last year. Once was before he started training. I believe he just had started running again. And like him and Joe, super friendly. They're just like they smoke a bunch. They just like he loved the time. And then he went on the podcast a couple months ago, and Joe actually, he said he had to further the distance in the table between guests because Mike Tyson actually scared him how intense he was. He said he looked at his forearms like they were going, and he was so intense that he was like, "Whoa, like I am terrified."
And they drug tested him too.
Yeah. So I mean, just like you said, another animal, whatever that guy has in him. Good.
He eats his Wheaties.
He definitely does. Well, everyone, have a good night. We'll see you later.
Peace.